Thank you, everyone. So I think this is one of the panel I'm most excited about today. So first of part of the panel, I want to talk about the industry evolution. Like first of all, what does it mean to be like open source AI mean? Is it open data, open weights, open model, and how the open source AI evolution has been in the past 3 to 5 years?
So when people talk about an open model or an open source project in AI, there are at least 3, I think, orthogonal dimensions I could be talking about. You hit it there with whether the source artifact itself is open source, whether the weights are open, whether the data set's open. I actually think all 8 settings of those bits mean different things and have different strategies. And they all are meaningful. I don't think any of them are actually just foolish. One of the ones that I think is relatively underexplored is actually open data, open source, closed weights. Where basically you reserve the right to serve the primo version of it, the fully trained version of it. I think that'd be a really interesting thing to see people make a stronger go at than has happened so far.
So MongoDB actually has a great background. Like it's like core from the open source community. How you have perceived, like with MongoDB, how open source principle has been driving a lot of the AI innovation here?
Yeah. So open source, the principles of open source as well as the ethos of open source are core to MongoDB's product and our product philosophy. A lot of it's around composability and making sure that we're not overly opinionated in how a developer uses our product. That being said, people think our license is controversial. A lot of developers start using MongoDB locally, and that ability to download open source MongoDB and build what you want has driven a lot of innovation and continues to. And so that sort of innovation is really driven by the fact that we have an open source offering.
How you think about monetization, commercialization strategy. Erik, what's your experience, with MindsDB? You're the seed investor in MindsDB. How's their journey being involved there?
It's interesting. At this point in the development of AI and the maturity of the AI market, there are certain considerations like right now for us that are really important and others we see will become important a little bit down the road. Everyone's terrified of putting these at large scale into production because of obvious concerns around security, prompt poisoning and stuff, and then also, how is this thing making its decisions? We're going to get sued, right? And so what we found right now, given the state of the market, you have a lot of large organizations that are finding their way in the dark, and the AI stack every week kind of changes. Like the best architecture for this and that, it develops really, really quickly, and somebody who works in a big, IT director in a big insurance company has no idea how to keep pace with this. And so the monetization for us right now is really around support and services, and especially consulting. The more mature monetization model is really going to be around dual licensing. Open source is nice for now, but if you really want to connect this to all of your internal systems, you want security, you want user provisioning, all that stuff, it's not the community edition, you want the enterprise edition, and that's kind of down the road.
Maybe for like founders, what type of moat they should build over time as well? Because like open source, what's the best way to think about like building that regard?
Well, especially in AI, there's some hard problems that aren't easy to solve, and if you can raise money and kind of race ahead and find a certain amount of maturity. MindsDB, a lot of it is open source, but how you scale it, and we have some kind of closed source and really hardcore research projects around, we do some fine tuning type of stuff, much like Pebblebed. There are kind of some secrets in there that we've hired a lot of physicists to solve those problems, and nobody's going to catch up any time quickly. So we've kind of differentiated through the technology.
When we put together this open source AI day, investor surprising is the hardest one. Like what kind of are strategic to support those founders for those programs?
And it's kind of the same methodology I've always used. You just lock a couple founders in a room and you just dig into the problems they're trying to solve. You kind of go through their patent filings, you ask them other questions, and after about 2 hours, you're like, yeah, these are the guys. So I think it's the investment process for me has been just really similar to the way it's always been.
And I think it's all about asking people difficult questions about the decisions they're going to make, and then sharing stories of what you have learned, but not necessarily telling them to follow your path.
And one of the things that we've found with sort of anybody that's trying to serve a model to customers right now is that they're more sophisticated multi-cloud users than companies that are 10 or 100 times their size, because on day zero, having a kind of secure supply of compute and being ready to handle some spike in load, whether it's because you want to train more or you actually have demand, you can't just assume that GCP will have more A100s for you tomorrow, because they just might not. So I mean, we're meeting people who are two guys and their dog in an apartment in San Francisco, and they're kind of buying 4090s for cash in parking lots and setting them up in their basement, just like it was sort of 1995 or something again, which I think is exciting and interesting. But it means there's a weird premium again to kind of, can these people really get a big pile of computers to do something strange and surprising in a pinch? Which has not been sort of something people have been actively assessing at early stage lately, which is interesting.
Not every single founder, they have the money to buy those crazy cluster to support their program. Are we seeing a different type of entrepreneurship going involved from this type of new paradigm?
I think we'll obviously see business model innovation. I'm not smart enough to tell you what it's going to be, unfortunately. VCs, who traditionally provide capital and some other resources, now all of a sudden they have GPUs to offer, which is something that I haven't seen in the past. During this time where it is constrained, I do assume that we'll see some business model innovation.
Yeah, so I think thank all of you for this amazing panel. I think 100%, this is a new paradigm, facing both founder and also for investor as well. We're collectively thinking this problem very proactively, and at the same time, for us, for Edge, we're launching our open source campus this year to really supporting a lot of the open source AI founders just to accelerate your project, build your community, and working with this amazing venture investor to help you grow your journey as well.